Hey lovelies, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Monique here. Hope you all are doing well. If you are new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And to my returning subscribers, thank you so much for the love and support. In today's tutorials, I'll be showing you how to make a palazzo jumpsuit with a cowl neckline. So let's get right into it. So I'll be using 3 yards of this stretchy fabric for these tutorials. So before then, I'll be drafting it on a pattern paper. So I've already drafted the basic bodice half scale. So I have a video on how to do this. I'll be dropping the link on the description box. So I'm going to be drafting the trouser pattern. So the length of the half scale is 17 inches. So I'll be minusing 17 inches from my measurement tape. So I'm going to place it this way. I'm minusing the 17 inches and I'll place it here. Then I'm going to take the full length of the trousers of the jumpsuit. I beg your pardon. So the full length is 62 inches. I'm adding extra 2 inches for seam allowance. So I'm going to mark it out. Now the next thing I'm going to do, so this is the center front. So I marked ½ inch from the center front. That is where our measurement will be starting from. So the ½ inches is for seam allowance. Now from this ½ inch mark, I'll be taking the hip circumference. So the hip is 42. 42 divided by 4 will give us 10.5. So I'm marking the 10.5 all the way to the full length. So I'm going to take a straight line. So it's just going to be like a box. That is where all our measurement is going to take place. So this is me creating like I call it a box or a rectangle shape. So the next thing I'm going to do from this point, I'm going to come in, I beg your pardon, by ½ inch. So after doing that, I'll take the waist circumference from this ½ inch mark I came in. This is just to give our waistline a very nice shape. So from this point, I'll take the waist circumference. So the waist is 32. 32 divided by 4 will give us 8 inches. So I'm going to mark it. So if you are going to add a dart, so you just mark out 1 inch for your dart. But I'm not adding a dart because it's a stretchy fabric. Now the next thing I'm going to do, I'll take the waist to hip. So for this, the waist to hip is 9 inches. So I'm going to mark out the 9 inches like so. Then the next measurement I'll take is the waist to crotch, my crotch depth. So for this, I'm going to divide my hip by 4. So to get your crotch depth is your hip divided by 4 and you mark it out. But because I'm making a jumpsuit, I'll add extra 2 inches to the 10.5 inches. That's my exact hip. So hip divided by 4 plus 2 inches. Sometimes you can add up to 3 inches, but I think 2 inches is just enough. So I'm marking the hip line and the crotch line. Then I'm making a palazzo trouser. If you are making a straight trouser, you just take your waist to knee measurement. So I'm not using this. I'm just marking it for the purpose of these tutorials. But I'm making a palazzo, so I won't be needing it. So I've already taken my full length. Now on the crotch line, I'm going to take the round tie. So the round tie is 25 inches divided by 2 will give me 12.5. So I've marked the 12.5 on the crotch line. Then on this waistline, I'm going to connect this point here. That is from this exact waist measurement. I'll connect it to the hip line here. So I won't be using this knee line because I'm making a palazzo trouser. So from this crotch depth, I remember I took 12.5. I'll take it all the way down. So that means from this line, I'm going to mark the 12.5 inches like this. From this line, I'll mark it all the way to the hem line like so. So after doing that, I'll connect it with my ruler to meet this crotch depth. Then on this angle shape, that is this angle 90, I'm going to come out by maybe 0.75 or 1 inch to create our crotch line. So from this point, I came out by 0.75. So I'll just curve it this way all the way to meet this hip line. So I'm taking it all the way to the hip line. So make sure you create a very good curve so that you don't have excess. So I've taken it to the hip line. Then the next thing, I'll connect this other points here with my pattern master. I'll connect it to this other 1/2 inch mark I took earlier. So we have this. Now the next thing I'm going to do before I cut the back, I'm going to be adding extra 1/2 inch here all the way. Remember I added 1/2 inch before, so I'll just create the 1/2 inch all the way to blend it into this other 1/2 inch I took earlier. So I've blended the 1/2 inch in, so I took it all the way to the other one I took earlier. So this is our front panel. So I'll go ahead and cut it out and place it to cut out the back. So this is the front. Now I've placed another pattern paper to cut out the back. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to mark out these lines. This is the waist, the hip line, the knee line, and the full length. So that we can draft our back panel. So I'm going to be taking 2 inches here all the way to the hemline, that's to the full length. I'm marking 2 inches. Then from the crotch depth here, I'm going to be using 2.5. But if you are sewing it for a bigger size, that is maybe from size 14 to maybe 20, you can use 3 or 3.5 inches. But for a size 10 or a size 12, 2.5 inches is just okay. So I'm using 2.5 inches for mine. So I'll just extend this line this way all the way like so. Then I'll use my ruler to connect it to the full length. So after doing this, I'm going to also mark out this hip line like this. Then I forgot I was supposed to make the back a bit longer than the front panel. So I added extra 2 inches on the top of the back panel. So I did the correction off camera. Now, after doing that, I'm going to take 2 inches also. Remember we took 2.5 inches and 2 inches all the way to the full length. Then on this hip line, I'm going to also take 2 inches. Then I'll extend it to the top part like so, just like what I'm doing. So afterwards, I'm going to come down from this crotch line. I'll come down by 1/2 inch before I'll create the curve for the back crotch. So it's very important you come down by 1/2 inch before connecting it to this mark I took, that is to these broken lines I took. Then from the waistline here, I'm going to take 2 inches upward. You can use maybe 1.5 or 2 inches, but because I'm making a jumpsuit, I took 2 inches upward. So I'll mark a horizontal line like this to the 2 inches mark, that is to that waistline here. Then the next thing I'm going to do, I'll be connecting it to these broken lines I took. Then I'll also, remember I came down by 1/2 inch on this back crotch. So I'm going to connect it with my pattern master all the way to meet this other line I took on the hip line like this. Okay, so let me explain something here. For a normal trouser, if you're making a normal trouser, you are going to come down by 1 inch from here. You come down by 1 inch and you slant it to the exact side waistline. But because we are making a jumpsuit, we won't be needing this. For the purpose of these tutorials is why I'm explaining this. You are going to come down by 1 inch for a normal trouser. But because we are making a jumpsuit, I won't be deducting anything. Then now the next thing I'm going to do, this 2 inches mark, I'm also going to slant it to the exact waistline on the side. So the reason why we are adding 2 inches on the top part of the back is because of the butt area. Remember, the back is not flat, so that is the purpose, so that it will accommodate the butt area. So I've added all the necessary allowance. So I've also added 1/2 inch on the other side. So I'm just going to cut it exactly like this and I'll show you. So like I said, I will not be adding any allowance even when I'm cutting it on the main fabric. So I've cut out our front and back panel. Now this is our half scale bodice. So this is the back panel, that's the top and the trouser for the back, and also the front panel. So as you can see, we have excess on the top of the pattern, So we'll be closing this dart. By the time we close this dart, it's going to tally with the front trouser. So I'll go ahead and cut it on the fabric. So remember that when you are cutting it, let the stretchy part be on a fold before you cut it out. So I've done that. Okay, so this is the front trouser pattern. I've also cut out the back. So this is the back. I cut out 2. I've also cut out the top of the back. That is the half scale, the back half scale bodice. Okay, so I'll be attaching a facing to the back panel later on. So let me show you how to cut the cowl neck on the front. So because I have limited fabric, there are so many ways to cut out a cowl neckline, but I'll be using this method. Okay, so I'll be slanting this like so. I'll make sure this waistline is on the exact folded part on the fabric. So this is the excess I'm leaving here. So I'm going to cut this part here, then I'll follow it exactly like this. Before then I'll measure it and check. So I have around 7 inches excess on the top part. Remember, let the waistline be exactly on the folded part. So I'm tracing it exactly like that to cut it out. So this is what we have. When I open it up, I have this. So I'm going to drape it this way, so it has formed the cowl neckline. So I've also gone ahead to cut out the back facing. I'll be explaining this later. Now coming to the trouser, I want to cut out the pocket. So it's on a fold. The width I'm working with is around 6.5 inches. Then the length I'll be using about 13 inches. Remember, it's on a fold, so I'll be cutting out 2. So after I do that, I've gone ahead to add interfacing on this part. So from the top part, I marked 2 inches. Then I slanted it to 7 inches. I did this earlier, but I think my camera went off. So I'm going to be placing the pocket on a fold like this. Then I'll just notch this part so that I'll know this is the lower side of the pocket. Then I'm going to open it up on the wrong side. I'll be placing the trouser panel on it like this. That is the wrong side to wrong side. And I opened the part I slanted. So I'll be sewing it. I also went ahead to iron that part. So I've gone ahead to top stitch this part to the pocket. So I will notch this part, that is the 7 inches mark. Remember, I said on the top I marked 2 inches and I slanted it to 7 inches and I notched it. I'm sorry, the camera went off, so it did not show that part, but that was just what I did. So on this wrong side, I'm going to fold this excess and I'm also going to top stitch it on the pockets. I hope you understand. I already have one video that I did a trouser. You can still check it out. So now I've done that. I've top stitched it and we have this. So I'm going to pick it up like this as the main pattern of the trouser, and I'm going to place it on the pocket this way. So this 2 inches, I'll make sure I have 2 inches, so it will make up for the part we folded in to form our pocket. Then I'll be sewing this part round, then I'll turn it to the wrong side and sew it this way. So I'm going to be sewing it by ½ an inch and I'll stop at this notched point here. So let me do that. So guys, I've done that. I've top stitched it, so I'll turn it to the good side like so. So after doing that, I'll place it back the way I explained earlier. So I'll make sure it's on that 2 inches mark on the waistline. That is this pocket part. I'll place it this way. So I'll make sure this part is 2 inches. That is this pocket slanted part. I'll make sure it's 2 inches. So afterwards, I'll be top stitching it to secure the pocket. I hope you understand. So I have another video on how to make a straight trouser. You can check it out. I did a vivid explanation on how to fix a pocket. So this is our pocket. This is the left and right side. So we fixed our pocket. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'll turn it over like so, good side to good side. Then I'll be sewing it on the center front by ½ an inch all the way to this point. So I'll do this. Then also on the back panel, I'm going to be fixing that. There's a dart on the back, so I'm going to fold it equally like so. Then I'm going to notch this part here and I'll mark 1/2 inch. I'll be fixing a dart here, so I'll mark 5 inches here. So I'm going to slant it and sew it to this point here for the back dart. After doing that, I'm going to also join the center back together here, this point that is on the crotch. I'm going to pick it up and I'll sew it by 1/2 inch. So I'll do that and show you. So guys, I've fixed the dart and I've also stitched the center back, but I did a loose stitch on this point here. I'll be losing it later because this is where the zipper is going to be. So I'll be marking about 8 inches for the zipper. I'll lose this part later, just this part, then I'll explain it. Now the next thing I'm going to do, I'll be joining the top to the, that is the top back to the trouser. So this is what we have, and I'm also, remember, as you can see, we have excess. I'll be fixing that also for the back panel. I'll do that. Then I'm going to join them together after I fix the dart. I'll fix the dart here, then I'll make sure it aligns. After doing that, I'll join the top to the trouser. So that I'll do that and show you. So this is where I'll be sewing. I'll be sewing here by 1/2 inch. I'll repeat the same thing. So guys, I've done that. I've attached the top to the trouser. As you can see, I've also stitched the dart. So now coming to the front panel, I'll make sure I get the center front of the trouser and the top so that it will tally. So I've stitched it by 1/2 inch. So we have this. So I also went ahead to stitch the neckline. I double folded it and I stitched it by 1/2 inch. So you can also use a bias tape to do that. So we fixed the neckline. Now on the back, I'll also go and fix the facing. I'll be sewing it together by 1/2 inch here, but I'm going to be leaving 1 inch on the center back for our zipper here. I'll leave 1 inch here before sewing it. So I'll stop at this point here before the zipper part. I've done that, as you can see. So this is the part I stitched and I left it open. Now I'll be joining the shoulder together, the front and back shoulder together. So as you can see, the front panel is wider than the back. It doesn't matter, it's just because of the cowl neckline. Now I'll be placing it this way. So this is the front panel. I'll open the facing of the back and the main fabric this way, and I'll place the shoulder of the front panel in between the two parts, that is in between the facing and the main fabric. I'll be sewing it by 1/2 inch. I'll repeat the same thing on this part. As you can see, I'll open this side, that is the facing and the main fabric. On this stitched part, I'm going to place the neckline here, that is on the front panel. I'll place the neckline, then I'll turn it over here, then I'll be sewing them together by 1/2 inch. So I'll do that and come back and show you. So guys, we've done that. I've attached the neckline, that is the shoulder, together, placing the front neckline in between the two, in between the facing and the main fabric. Now the next thing is to join the back and front crotch together this way. Make sure the two aligns like so. So I'll be sewing it by 1/2 inch all the way to the hemline. I'll repeat the same thing on this side. I'll sew it all the way to the hemline. So guys, I've done that. I've attached the front and back crotch together and I stitched it all the way to the full length. Then the next thing I'm going to do, I'll be sewing the sides, but before I sew the sides, I'll be hemming the sleeve. Remember, it's a sleeveless dress, so I'll be cutting another piece of fabric on bias and I'll be folding this part in. So this is the part. I've already cut a piece of fabric on bias, so I'll be using it to turn it in. So I'm placing it on the good side of the fabric. So I'm going to pin it up. So this is how I'm going to do. I'm going to fold it by 1/2 inch like this. then I'm going to double fold it this way, then I'm going to top stitch on it from here like so. So make sure you cut the piece of fabric on bias because it's a curvy part. The armhole part is curvy, if not it will not sit well. So I'll sew it and show you. So I've done that. I've sewn the armhole with the bias strip and we have this. Now I'll be joining the front and back together. So I left 1 inch for seam allowance on the top. So I'll be sewing it together like so, making sure the waist aligns. So guys, I've done that. On the top part of the jumpsuit, I stitched it by 1 inch, but the trouser part, I stitched it by ½ inch. Now on the hemline, I'll be sewing it by 1 inch and I'll refold it again by 1 inch. That means I'm double folding it by 2 inches because I left 2 inches for seam allowance. Now I also went ahead to get a zipper. I forgot to buy a zipper. That was why I didn't fix the zipper earlier. So I'll go ahead and place it this way. So I'll leave ½ inch on the top part before fixing the zipper. So I'll do that and show you. So I fixed the zipper to the jumpsuit. So I make sure the half length aligns so that it will sit well. Then afterwards, I'm going to open this part up and I'm going to use the facing to close the zipper this way like so. Remember, I left this part open. So I'm going to top stitch it here by ½ inch. I'll continue. Then afterwards, I'll sew very close to the zipper. So after I sew this part, I'll also sew close to the zipper. I'll repeat the same thing here. Okay guys, I've done that. As you can see, I've used the facing to turn the zipper in. I'll be weaving this later on. So this is the neckline, this is the waist part. We've also fixed the armhole and also the hemline. I've gone ahead to sew it round. We've come to the end of these tutorials, guys. I hope it was helpful. Please don't forget to subscribe, share, give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching and see you in my next video.